Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big Brother Canada 11 Stock Watch Roundtable podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and this is, of course, the podcast where we talk about everything from the little bit we get in Big Brother Canada 11. With me this week to talk through it all is Mari. How you doing, Mari?
Hi, Taran. Hi, Melissa. I'm glad to be here to just speculate wildly. We know how I love to speculate wildly on these Big Brother things. Um, and that's what it's gonna be, because as much as I hate to admit it, just like Melissa, I have no clue what's going on. And normally when I feel unprepared for a podcast like this, I'm like breaking out in hives. But I kind of feel better that nobody knows what's going on. So we're here.
We're here. Also here is Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
Oh, I'm here. I feel the same way. I feel like it's just like I don't really know like what we're doing here. Like I don't really know like why we're even talking, to be honest, just because like we don't have anything to talk about. Big Brother Canada has given us literally nothing. The show is so bad. Like, just honestly, like, it's just so embarrassing. It's so unprofessional. Like, okay, and I'm just gonna like get it out now so that way we can move on and actually like talk about like the players and everything like that. Because right now, like, I'm just gonna do that. It's so unprofessional the way they're handling this. Like, it feels like they last minute think about like, oh yeah, I guess we should give them something, a drop or something. I think we had promised them a daily drop or whatever, and then they go and they give us like 30 minutes of nothing. It's like, and it's like at random hours, like it's completely unprofessional. It's like they didn't think of this at all beforehand. It makes me think like all the speculation of like, oh, they must have known way in advance that they weren't going to have feeds and then they were going to like do this daily drop thing. Like it's not believable at all. I don't believe for 1 second that they had a plan. Like, this doesn't feel planned out. This doesn't feel well done. This doesn't feel like they have literally a single care about their show. I don't know like why they're even going with it. Like, I don't even know why they're still airing it. I feel like they should just like stop because it's over. Like, the whole thing is just done for me. It's like, I honestly, this is like, unless they bring back feeds, like this is probably gonna be the last season of Big Brother Canada, so I guess we should like enjoy it or something. But the whole thing is just it makes me mad to think about it because like I love the show so much, and like I literally like was so looking forward to this season, especially after how great last season was, that this whole thing is just a total embarrassment. It looks really poorly on the entire production team, and especially like, I'm sorry, but you know, if you're gonna give us just a daily drop, or not even a daily drop, if you're gonna give us a drop of like live feeds, give it to us consistently at the very least. Like, okay, it's a 2-hour block or even like a 1-hour block, but you're going to get it at 11 a.m. every day or whatever. Like, otherwise it's just randomly given to us, sometimes late at night, and like on random days. Like, they took off the description of Monday through Friday because they couldn't even satisfy that requirement. Like, I don't know what they're doing or why. Like, something must be going on and behind the scenes that we're just like completely unaware of, like just mass chaos or something. But it's just so bad. The whole thing is just it's so sad. It's such a sad end to what was such an amazing show at one point. Anyway, yeah. Now that I got that out of the way, we can talk.
It's kind of like that, you know, that extra season of Scrubs, you know?
Yeah.
They're just like, just end it, please.
Where you're like,
just leave your legacy.
It doesn't actually count. The real ending was the one before. It was a spin-off, really.
It's very interesting. It's like Big Brother Canada turned us into like the 17th house guest, but not in a fun way. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get privy to small amount of knowledge. Just like
we don't know what's going on.
We don't know what's going on.
We're going to get nominated next week.
We have to figure out who's in power and who's on the bottom, but it's not fun. Like, this isn't fun. Like, I would almost much rather we have absolutely nothing than to have these, because I have sat on live feeds and watched people play various games, make up stupid raps, clean whole rooms, and not really cared. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're given a certain a lot of time, right? Because Tara knows I like the silly shit. Like I like the different things on the live feeds that aren't necessarily all strategy. However, when you tell us that, or we see a drop that's only like 2 hours of stuff, and then you pack it with an hour and 45 minutes of silly stuff, and then only 15 minutes of strategy, that doesn't feel fun because it's a finite amount of time. I'd rather just turn the feeds on and let them do silly stuff in the background and then catch the strategy as I go along, because at least I know that it'll come eventually and that I'll have access to it at all times. Not having access to any of the strategy talk and then being kind of force fed the silly stuff, it's just like, what are we doing here? Like I'm like, you're like questioning my intelligence. Like, this is stupid.
Also, I don't even care about the strategy right now because it's not complete. We don't have a full picture. I mean,
That's
yeah,
so true.
okay, I get it. We don't have a full picture even when we have the feeds. I get it. But at least like we can see other conversations. We can see follow-up conversations. Instead, we get one conversation between two people. And from that, we have to totally like extrapolate like, oh, okay, well, this must be the truth about this person. And this person says that this person's working with this person. But it could just be that those two people that are talking don't work together, so they're lying to each other. Like, we don't know that. We can't then see the follow-up conversation of like, oh, now Santina goes into the room with Renee and actually tells everything that they're like, because they're working together. Like, we don't see that. Instead, we just see one snippet of a conversation that we don't know if it's true. We don't know if it's false. We don't know if they're actually working together. We don't know like what the other dynamics are in the house. So like these one-off like strategy conversations that we're getting aren't helpful at all. And don't make me, care about it or excited about it or anything, because like, I don't know whether I should be listening to this conversation and caring about this conversation, or if the conversation is totally inaccurate.
It's weird. It's weird. When they first started dropping these, I was like, they're putting zero effort into this. They're just like blocking off a big chunk. But it's become clear to me, they do edit these. Like we get like little bits of like, okay, Santina goes from here to here to here, and we're cutting out time in between, and we're getting like, okay, Shania has a conversation with Rob, and then immediately we get Shania explaining her conversation with Rob right after. Like, they're editing these things together, but that means they're actively choosing to give us vacuuming and cooking and
they're actively
like
choosing
just
to give us garbage,
random nonsense, like two dudes working out silently for like a couple minutes. Like, it's like, wait, what are you talking? Like, how is this happening? This is so strange. And then, yeah, like the weird release, it feels like an afterthought. And it feels like the only way I can make it work in my head is if it's literally one person that has to do this entire thing, and they are only allowed to do it in like 20 minutes. Like, you have 20 minutes to put together the daily drops, and if you don't get it done in 20 minutes, every minute that you're late with it, we're gonna wait an hour to release it. Like, that's it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's like I feel like they had the right, like, or Arissa or whoever, when she was describing the daily drops, like, had the right like idea of like, we want to give you the strategy conversations, we want to give you important stuff, like, but then it just totally fell apart. Like, whoever is in charge of it or whoever is controlling it, like, obviously like doesn't care. I don't know. Like, maybe they care, or maybe there's just too much red tape to get around or whatever, and everyone's just like, just get it out there so we can forget about it. I don't know, but it's just like, it's not giving us what we want, and it's not really giving us anything. And so I don't really know.
And I think the biggest travesty of this all is we're not getting to know the cast like at all. I think that is literally the biggest travesty, because I want to be invested in these people. I want to be invested in these characters. I want to get to know these people. And normally that's how we do it is through the feeds and watching the stuff that, might not be important to the game. But when we're getting these chunks, I swear, like Taran was saying, we get 10 seconds of Dan. I forget Vanessa is there because I swear she's never in them. Like, Daniel, I want more Daniel. Like, I want more of a whole bunch of people that I'm not getting. And you have no control. And that's the most annoying thing, because when we're watching feeds, at the very least, it's like, oh, so feed 1 and 2 is on these 2 people that I don't really care about. Let me go listen to 3 and 4 where there are people that I do care about on it. Like, I feel like I can't even pick a person to root for because I don't know anybody. And I have to make snap judgments from these little clippets. And it's very annoying because I want to be invested in these people, because I think a few of them are the few of them being super fans and all, I want to like be able to root them on and tell them what they did, and you want to be able to like enlighten them once they get out of the house, but we're going to be like, you know more than us. So I feel bad, and I almost now wish this was an all-star season, because at the very least, if it was like an all-star season, then I think if this was an all-star season, I wouldn't mind this as much, because I know the people. I can kind of reasonably guess what their play is based on their past play. I can reasonably deduce who I'm rooting for because of their past play. But doing this with all newbies, it just feels so hard and so frustrating. It feels like I'm behind the 8 ball.
I'd be way more annoyed if this was all stars. Like, imagine if like Godfrey's back, Ika's here, like like but this is what we get, and like Godfrey's not on any of the daily drops for more than like 2 minutes, right? Like that's a very realistic outcome.
True.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
I'd be more annoyed, I think.
It's all bad. It's never
all bad.
good. I feel like, yeah, it's like it's all bad. And we want to try and be like, well, maybe if it was this, but I feel like it's just like, I mean, for me, the show is the feeds. So like, I don't really have any interest in this. Like, if I'm being honest, like I mean, I don't know. Like, I watch the show just because like, I like to talk about it with you guys or whatever after the episode. And I like to hear the DR sessions, but like for the most part, the show is like, or I like to see also like how they edit together, like what I saw on the feeds. And if it's like an accurate like representation, like if I feel like, maybe there's stuff that I missed or whatever, it's nice to like see more, but like, I just don't care. I don't care about the show. I like the feeds. That's the show. That's it. Like, that's what's fun about it. That and the community. It's not this, watching these competitions. Like, sorry, and I've said this for years. The competitions are really, really boring to me. And I usually fast forward through them because I hate them. It's like, I like the other stuff. So I don't know. It's just, this has been a really, really bad season. And to no fault of like the players, really, like it's really just production. And I feel bad for the players that they have to be involved in this type of thing. Like I'm sure there are a lot of players in the house. I mean, yeah, obviously there are some recruits, but I'm sure there are a lot of players in the house who like are so thrilled to be on this and are going to be so sad when they come out of the house and they see that like everybody has given up on it. I mean, like the like hashtag is dead. Social media for this show is dead. There's like I see maybe like 2 posts a day when there's a daily drop. Like over the weekend, there was absolutely nothing. It was crickets. And then on like Reddit, there's like 40 comments on each like daily drop like thing. If that, it's like normally there's thousands and people are like up all night watching these. It's like, it's really sad to see what this has become. And, I feel like I'm sorry, but like the way that like, I'm just going to have to keep talking about it, like, and ranting about it like this, because like, it just gets worse and worse. Honestly, it's like the way that they turn the daily drops into like 1 hour segments on nothing. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to sustain this level of frustration. Like, when they decided to cut off the live feeds, I thought like this, like obviously I was annoyed and but there was a part of me that was like, hey, maybe it'll work. Maybe they'll, give enough to satisfy people and like just keep them quiet or they won't care. But they've actively done so bad on a consistent level and continue to get worse that they're like keeping the level of frustration with them active like this whole time. And they continue to completely ignore it. Like they're posting on Twitter as if every single comment under their tweet, like every single time isn't just like, but what about the live feeds, bro? Like They're just living in, I don't know, some kind of bubble where maybe they feel like they're punishing the audience. I don't know, but it's a very bad relationship that's going on right now. And it's a
so
very
weird.
difficult thing to do, to be so actively bad that you continue to piss off the only people that are still there so much that they still can't even like properly engage with your content.
I like don't even know why like they keep posting on Twitter like this without like any acknowledgement. Like I just feel like there's been zero acknowledgement of this like ever since the announcement. Like it was the announcement, then Arissa did that interview and Arissa did that tweet or whatever. But after that it was nothing. Like there's not even some sort of like announcement or post or tweet or whatever about like, hey, sorry for like the weird timing for the daily drops, we're still figuring it out, or literally anything, or even just like, hey, there's a daily drop that the daily drop's going to be on this date and this schedule and this is what's happening, or any update. Instead it's like, get ready for your daily drop, here it is, like at 1 a.m. It's like, what good does this do to anybody? And this ignoring all the like hate comments and all the comments of like, you know, underneath it, to just like pretend like they're just totally oblivious to the fact that people are pissed. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and it's really weird that at the bare minimum you could do with this new change in format is just be consistent with the daily drops, like literally the bare minimum. And they're like, we can't even do that. And I think that's what feels like the biggest slap in the face. Like Melissa's saying, we're getting no communication from them. We're getting nothing. I have to actively remind myself to check the hashtag. Like I have to be like, oh, I haven't looked at the hashtag in 3 days. Let me see what's going on. Like it's so weird, like why they would want to do this. And if if this reaction to no live feeds is anything like wrestling, once the hate and the anger and the annoyance dies down, it'll be nothing. It'll be abject, like just the hate, not even hate, but just what's the thing? Ambivalence. Like it's like you'll get nothing. And I think that's where we're on the path to. If it's week 2 and it's still this bad, can you imagine trying to stick around for like 10 weeks? I mean, I know y'all can imagine because we get paid
because we'll have to.
But I mean, could you imagine as a viewer being like,
oh, I would have been done long ago if I was a viewer. Like I would have been like, I'll just binge watch the season at the end, honestly. Like that's literally what I would do. I just like, I mean, the one I was even talking to Dennis about it the other day, just being like, you know, the one good thing about this is I have like no, you know, Big Brother has not taken over my life at all. In fact, I haven't even cared or thought about it like for like 5 days now. It's like, it totally goes out of my mind. And, you know, I guess it's good for my mental health, but it's like terrible for like my interests. But, you know, maybe that was their whole intent. Maybe they're like, guys, everyone has a really unhealthy relationship with our show. Like we just need to cut it off for your benefit. Like who cares about ratings? Who cares about us? Like we're good with our sponsors. Like you guys like should just like chill out and, you know, don't worry about Big Brother.
There you go. All right. Well, let's talk a bit about what we do know, because it's not a lot, I will say. And man, we barely made it today with a drop that was about an hour long. If we hadn't gotten that drop, which happened like what, 3-4 hours ago, like we wouldn't have had any real new information for you.
And even now, I feel like we barely have any information.
We barely
I guess
do.
At least we know like some nominations or something. Like, I mean, maybe. I don't know. We don't even know for sure if the nominations are what we're thinking they are. Like,
yeah, it's gonna be a tricky one, but look, we're gonna make it work. This is my second stock watch of the day. Actually, I did a Survivor stock watch earlier today, and I feel like I know less about the Big Brother one than I did the Survivor one, which is pretty wild. But again, we're gonna make it work. I did tweet out a survey. I did have to wait until the drop came out because what are you gonna rate before the drop happens? So it hasn't been up for very long, but it is still there if you want to find it on my Twitter. And there's still another 6 minutes for you to fill it out if you want to try and fill it out real quick.
Like it's gonna be like 4 people. Like,
on top of that, it was also broken for like an hour earlier. But it should be working
the
now.
audience, if you want to participate in
Please,
that now,
do
you'll
it
probably
right
have
now.
the most like say of any time you've ever filled out this survey. It'll be like 5 people voting.
All right. So I did ask some questions. In particular, how would you rate the episodes of Big Brother Canada this week? And I asked this question last week. The audience said a 3.0. I asked again this week. They said a 2.9. So down by a 0.1. And I got to say, this is still too high for me. I feel like
too generous,
especially after
people.
the fart episode. Like that was really a low point, I think, in the entire series. And it's like, because that's the thing too. Like they're really firing on all cylinders in terms of like bad content. Because I'm literally just trying to judge the episodes on their own, and that's obviously hard to do without knowing the context. The episodes are worse, but even just like the content of that episode was really bad. Like I think it was just like an objectively bad episode.
I'm struggling to remember the episode as you're saying it. I remember you
Right?
said fart. I was like, handcuffs, pizza
Yep.
party. That is literally, that's all that's coming back to me right now.
Yeah.
So
Not good.
Yeah. I asked the audience to rate the drops this week, and it was actually the same rating from last week, a 1.9. So, you know, I feel like we might have reached the bottom of the ratings for these things. The season as a whole, last week was a 2.2, this week a 2.1.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And
this is so sad. It's just like, it's so depressing. It just makes me sad because like, as much as I like sit here and like complain and everything, like I really did love the show. Like I really had such a soft spot for Big Brother Canada. Like, I mean, now there's really no argument as to like what's the superior Big Brother. It's obviously Big Brother US because they have live feeds and because they care about their show. Like I always said Big Brother Canada cares about the show. Big Brother US does not care about the show. Now nobody cares, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's kind of like it's not an actual comparison anymore. Like they're not the same show anymore.
Right. That's like you couldn't compare like Big Brother Australia and Big Brother US because it was like, well, Big Brother Australia you're watching for like other reasons. Like it's not like the strategy of like, well, now it's changed, but previous Big Brother Canada or Big Brother Australia. And so it was like you could enjoy them as like separate things or whatever. But this is you can't compare Big Brother Canada and Big Brother US anymore.
Yeah, it's Did Elon Musk buy Big Brother Canada?
Oh no!
That honestly, if you told me that, I would not be surprised. I would be like, yeah, okay, yep. Run it into the ground.
Feels like.
Yeah.
Anytime I open the Twitter app, I get a message. I keep ignoring it. It's something about 2-factor authorization. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the deadline was yesterday too.
I screwed it up. Anyway. There was some room to fall because last week the audience rated the competitions at 3.7. So look at the competitions. You know, better than a 2 out of 10. Except this week they're down to a 2.7.
Okay.
Well, yep,
well,
that's about right.
Yeah, not great.
I mean, I don't like competitions anyway, so.
They're too physical. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Again, they're firing on all cylinders. Like they haven't done a thing right here.
Yeah. And it's just so weird because last season they did such a good job of making it a little bit more equitable.
Did something happen? Did some like producer like did it change hands or something? Like is there new ownership or like is something different? Because I feel like there's no way that this is the same group of people that produced Big Brother Canada 10. Like I just feel like there's no way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm thinking of like BBCAN11 when wasn't it at this point the second HOH where Victoria won, like Spicy V won just from like counting the rocks, I want to say, that were falling? Was that this early?
I think that was a little later.
Later, okay. Like her first one was the cruise thing. Like they were like, it was a trivia. I think it was a trivia of some sort. So it's just, man, like 3 physical comps in a row.
Well, I asked the audience to rate Dan's HOH this week, and I apologize for asking that question because we've genuinely, I think, had, I would say, probably 60 to 90 seconds of Dan speaking since he won HOH. So who
That's
knows?
ridiculous. That's so ridiculous. Like, we literally have to wait to the episodes to figure out anything about his decision, like who he was maybe originally targeting, or was he swayed? Half the people don't even know he was HOH because the drop was like late Friday or whatever. Or, like, I don't.
Well, the audience gave it a 2.6, which is slightly higher than Santina's 2.5 last week. So there you go.
Fine.
I asked the audience, do you agree with Dan's target?
We don't know who it is.
We assume at this point, sorry that I haven't set this up for you. Dan is the HOH. He nominated, we think, Hope and Renee. Hope had volunteered for the block, thinking that he was ready to go home. He seems to have changed his mind about that. He's ready to stay. Zach then won the HOH. And as far as we know, the plan is for Zach to take Hope off of the block and have Dan replace Hope with Rob, the true target for the week, which Zach and Ty were hoping that they could get. They were hoping they could get Rob out this week, even before the HOH happened. So we assume that Dan's target is Rob, which is, it's basically, this week is playing out exactly the same as last week, where Dan did promise Rob safety. It's like 30 of the 90 seconds we've got from Dan, and it appears that he is now planning to put Rob up on the block as a backdoor target. So did the audience agree with this target? Well, 88% of them don't, which is not quite as bad as the 90% Santina's.
It's because I don't, Taran, maybe you know, but what is the relationship between Dan and Rob? I feel like I have no idea what their relationship is to kind of know if I think
it's hard to
this is
determine whether it's good or bad because we don't know.
They worked out together this morning, or yesterday morning, I should say. And again, Dan promised him safety, so that's about
probably
the relationship.
Yeah, probably not good then.
I mean, considering the fact that there are multiple people in the house who actively want Dan gone, and Rob does not appear to be one of them, it's probably a mistake.
Context clues. Yeah.
Do we know for sure that? I mean, I guess we don't know for sure that Dan is wanting Rob out. It's more just like that the plan, according to like Zach and those guys, is like we're gonna get him to put Rob on the block. But there hasn't been confirmation that like that's his target.
Well, if he puts Rob up on the block post veto,
but they're just trying to convince him, right? Like it's not that.
Well, it's become
saying he's gonna do it.
It's kind of a known quantity at this point. So Kuzi and Santina talked about it like it was a sure thing. Ty talked about it like it was a sure thing. And even Rob is like, I don't know if I'm getting paranoid, but I think I'm in trouble. So it seems as though this is locked in. I mean, Zach holds the veto, has, I assume, already talked to Dan about what he's going to do with the veto, and the plan has all been kind of put in place. I would be surprised at this point if this did not happen. Without anything major changing. Like, for instance, if Santina went to Dan or somebody else went to Dan and tried to convince him not to, we could theoretically see it's not happen. But I think at this point it is locked in for Dan, right now, that he currently plans to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I think that's a very stupid move. So Dan's bad HOH.
Yeah. I asked who the audience wants to be evicted this week. I did include Hope in the answers, and so Hope got 62% of the vote. But between Renee and Rob, Renee had 21% and Rob had 16%, so slightly preferring Renee to leave over Rob. And that's likely what we're going to see as the two options. And it is kind of a tricky choice for the house guests, and we will go over why and kind of like what that will look like once Rob goes up on the block in just a second. But for now, most people would like for Hope to go, and if not Hope, then small preference for Renee over Rob.
Cool.
All right.
Sure.
How about our favorite player list? Let's talk about that. Do you have any predictions?
I think
for the top
Kuzi's
three?
number one.
Yeah, I'm thinking Kuzi. Like, I'm trying to think just off of, like, is it Twitter or off the actual dailies? If it's, I think with the dailies and hype going in, I think it's Kuzi is number one. Maybe Daniels can sneak into 3, but I feel like he's not been highlighted enough. I do not know who the third spot would be. Maybe Claudia. I've been liking what Claudia's been doing.
I'll give you a little bit of a cheat sheet. Last week, the top 3 were Kuzi, Claudia, and Daniel.
I think that's repeat now.
Yeah.
Well, you're almost correct. This week, it's Kuzi, Daniel, and Claudia. Daniel got second over Claudia this week. I think a little too much showmancing going on. Probably.
Oh, yeah, true.
And we got a little bit more from Daniel as well.
That makes sense. I could see that.
Bottom 3 last week were Renee, Santina, and then Zach at the very bottom.
I think it's Zach at the bottom, then Ty, then I think Santina.
Yes. Yes. I want to say exactly that. Zach. I don't think Renee's down there. I think Santina is still down there because she hasn't really proven herself yet. Yeah, I agree with Melissa. Yeah, let's throw Ty in there.
Completely nailed it. Zach at the bottom, Ty second to last, Santina third to last.
Look, I don't know who people like, but I do know who people hate. I got that
So here's
down.
the list. It's Kuzi, Daniel, Claudia, Rob, Renee, Jonathan, Shania, Vanessa, Hope, Dan Zabo, Anika, Santina, Ty, Zach.
Yep.
So
yeah,
some big shit here.
Anika is 4th from the bottom.
4th from the bottom, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's weird for Anika because I think she's so low just because she from the daily drop she's constantly just showing how she doesn't know what's going on. I think that's the biggest thing. However, like Taran said, I do like that she is still trying to be scrappy and stay in the house. It's a very much like anybody but me type of mentality. The problem is that can only get you so far, and she is one of the only people who doesn't have the foresight to think of what would be the next step. And that conversation between her and Daniel, I think sometime last week or whatever, if I was Daniel, I feel like I would have just given up. I would have just been like, I can't with you, because she wasn't listening to a thing he was saying. It felt like.
Yeah, well, so we see Renee went from 3rd from the bottom to 5th place this week. So big jump for Renee. Now, I will say that John Michael was 4th place last week. Rob is 4th place this week.
Oh.
Not saying there's any correlation here, but I don't know if that looks great for Rob. All right. That's the favorite player list. And I think the main thing to talk about before we rate the players is if Rob goes on the block, how do we think this plays out? Because we saw a conversation between Kuzi and Santina where Santina mentioned that she may want Rob to stay because Rob is targeting Zach and she is no longer trusting Zach, or at least in this moment, skeptical of Zach once again. Now, we saw this happen before last week, and she seemingly went back to Zach afterward. So it's possible that she's just having another weak moment. And when she talks to Ty, she does eventually say to Ty, like, you know what? You're totally right. I'm totally with you. So I don't know if she's genuinely going to be swayed back and forth or if she's just telling Ty what he wants to hear. But it is very possible that she will stick to that opinion and that this is kind of like a pretty common opinion in the house at this point, that Zach is kind of a big player of the game. He's controlling this HOH, and it is very possible that the rest of the house may want to keep Rob around so that he can go after Zach. However, I think a lot of the people that would want to do that are also close to Renee. And that's where the tricky part comes in. So let's try and just very vaguely guess some of the votes here, if possible. And you know what? Let's just pull up the stock watch bit here so that we can look at the names. Because
we don't know them.
Even though we're 2 weeks into the show, it's still hard to remember everyone, because sometimes they only know how to vacuum. So if Rob and Renee are on the block, Dan doesn't vote either. That means there's once again 11 votes, and you need 6 to win the day.
That's a tough one, because I feel like a lot of the girls, at least from what I could see, they're concerned about a guy's alliance, and I feel like keeping a guy in the hopes that the guy will go after the other guys versus keeping a girl who has been talking with you about, like, hey, there's a guy's alliance, this is not good for us women, I feel like that would be a tricky position. And if I was in their spot, I probably would keep Renee. So I could see the girls all being like, look, as much as I'd love to keep Rob and Renee, like, I got to go with the girls. I mean, otherwise we're going to just be totally outnumbered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sorry, I'm going to move this because I did not update this spreadsheet properly, and there are some incorrect ratings on the board, but I'm just going to quickly change that. Yeah, this is it's a weird spot. There are some benefits, I think, to keeping Rob around. Primarily that he is connected to a player like Jonathan, right? And Jonathan has some connections to, to Santina and to Kuzi and some other people, but it's very possible that if Rob leaves, that maybe Jonathan goes back to the other bros, right? And then the bros kind of consolidate back in together. That's a scary thought, right? But if Rob stays, he pulls in Jonathan, and it's Rob and Jonathan versus the rest of the bros, and hopefully in their battle, a couple of them end up getting taken out. So I'm trying to do spreadsheets and talk at the same time.
But is there a possibility that in this scenario, like, Zach uses the veto on Hope, and then he is able to play it to Rob as, like, I use the veto on Hope because he's like a bro with us, and I was told that Dan was going to nominate some woman or whatever. I was told he was going to nominate a girl, and so I used it not knowing that you were going to go on the block, keeps Rob and Jonathan, like, within their group. And then it ends up being a situation where Jonathan and Rob are just, like, with the bros still, because they're like, oh yeah, we're all still working together. You didn't know, like, we just are against Dan Zabo or whatever his name is.
Right. Yeah, and that is another danger, right? I think there are some genuine sort of, like, questions to ask yourself in this spot if you are the rest of the house and you're hoping for some kind of war that will occur, especially somebody like Daniel, who's somebody who talked about this. He wanted a war to break out. So if you are Daniel, like, what is the optimal move here? And it's tricky. It might depend on your relationship. If you have a good relationship with Renee and you also think that Renee will go after the guys, then that's great. There's definite reason to keep Renee around, but at the same time, you still have to think about, like, okay, well, who is Renee connected to? Like, if I leave Renee in the game, is there a big group of people that Renee is with that that is that a big enough group? Are they going to be seemingly threatening enough to take on those guys? And you also have to consider your own sort of personal relationships. Like, am I going to be a swing vote here? Am I going to be seen as somebody pushing for a certain thing? If I push for Rob to stay, is that going to, tank my relationships with Ty and with Zach in a way that, that doesn't benefit me? So if it's equal kind of either way, if either one can stay and there's still a war, then maybe I want to go with the one that keeps me safe the most. Like, there's a lot of things to consider for sure.
Yeah. It's tough because, like, I think there are like pros and cons of keeping any of them at this point. So it's tough.
Yeah, and I think that possibility that you said, Melissa, is possible because Zach already said to Ty, or was I don't even know who he said it to, but we know that he is like he is planning Dan's exit next, anyways. Like Dan is the next target for them, anyway. So if Rob does happen to stay and it's in a way that he can kind of smooth it over with Rob, he could just turn Rob on Dan. And so I think this is going to come down to who is more easily influenced by the person in the house that you are opposing. You know what I'm saying? That's what I would think.
Mhm.
So if I'm a player who wants sides to form, but me kind of be left out of it, I'm definitely figuring out, okay, if I'm against Zach, will Zach have a lot of leverage on Renee? Will he have influence on Renee? Would he have influence over Rob? And I think it'll all come down to how Rob acts once he's on the block. And unfortunately, we don't have that information right now, because I would love to know the fallout of him going up on the block like that. Not knowing, but being a little bit like his hackles were up, like he knew. I would have loved to know, is Zach and the boys spinning a lie to him, like Melissa said, or are they straight up like, we had to get you out, man, blah, 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 blah. Like, I really want to know what's going to be the reaction, what the reaction is, whatever, to Rob being on the block, because I think that truly depends on which way the week is going.
Yeah. Well, let's count some votes. We'll pull this back up. Let's assume, again, Rob is on the block against Renee. Dan is the HOH. You need 6 votes. I think that you can immediately say that Zach and Ty are both votes against Rob. I think that you can say, I think especially given the friend zoning conversation that happened yesterday for Rob, I think Shania is picking Renee over Rob. I don't think she's anti-Rob in the game, but Renee's like her closest ally as far as we know. So I think Shania picks Renee over Rob. I think that's 3 votes for Rob to leave. You then have to look at like, where does Hope go? I'm not sure. Claudia, I would assume Claudia.
I'm sorry, Taran.
Go ahead.
For Hope, both Renee is like his number 1, right?
He does really like Renee,
but he's also really close with Rob. So I think Hope is going to be the person who, unfortunately, he's going to have like the toughest decision here.
Anika, we know, wanted Renee out. But she also is pretty close with the guys, and I feel like unless there's a movement in the other direction, she probably just sides with them if that's what like the house wants, right? But I wouldn't necessarily count her as a locked in vote. Claudia, I think, isn't locked in. Daniel wouldn't be locked in. And then Jonathan is a sure vote for Rob to stay. Kuzi, I don't think, would be locked in.
I think
Tina.
Did you say Daniel? I think Daniel might be a locked in vote for Rob to stay, because he was actively targeting Renee, right?
He was actively targeting Renee. Renee and Dan were the 2 targets that he was looking at. That said, though, like I just feel like Daniel is a very like adaptable player. And we'll just look at, like, he may not even think that Rob was an option. And with Rob on the block, he might, again, I think he's somebody that's going to look at it and be like, I'm going to figure out what's best for me. So I think there are 3 locked in votes against Rob: Ty, Zach, and Shania. I think there's 1 locked in vote against Renee in Jonathan. And then everybody else is theoretically up for grabs, but it's a lot harder for Rob to get there. Santina, for as much as she's saying like it would be great to keep Rob around, like Santina in what army, right? Like, is she okay? Santina, Jonathan, Kuzi, like there's something there, but it means that she's trashing her relationship with Ty and with Zach in order to do it. And again, like, where does Hope go? That's tricky, like, I feel like Hope would want to side with Jonathan and the women. Like, I feel like that's where I see Hope going, but it would mean the women would have to be together in voting out Rob, voting out Renee, which I don't see them doing necessarily. Like, is Claudia and Claudia, Anika, Kuzi, Santina, is that four going to come together and say we need to take out Renee against Shanea's wishes? And then I have no idea about Vanessa. I would say it's not impossible, but I do think it's unlikely. I think that again, you have those 3 votes plus Santina and Anika, 2 players that are close with Zach and Ty and will be hesitant to do anything anti-Zach and Ty, I think. Obviously Santina is not super close with Zach anymore, but she is still close with Ty. And so, I think Ty's influence there. And then Claudia even, Claudia might feel like, is it worth going? Like, again, it might be the same conversation they had last week. We know what decision they made last week. Is it worth showing our cards just to protect this guy who might not even be super, valuable to us when we've got Renee on the block, who is an ally of ours that we have talked a lot of game with. It seems tricky, I think, for Rob to get out of this.
Yeah, when you say it like that, that's true. I originally came into this thinking like, oh, this might be a good time to flip. A lot of people were saying like, this week they want to do what's best for their game, but unfortunately, Zach and Ty have a stranglehold on power right now, and people recognize it and people know it needs to stop, but they're not doing much for it. And honestly, this choice, it's not like this is an easy choice between Renee and Rob. So it's not like they're shooting themselves in the foot. It's just they kind of, Ty and Zach maneuvered it very well, that they're kind of forcing people's hands on this vote. So I mean, that's good. That's good for them.
And it's just a situation where it's like, it's not a situation like last week where it's JM who has a mind of his own and will go against the power, and versus Dan, who is just like a number for Zach, like 2 opposites in the game. This is a spot where both Renee and Rob are anti-Zach, theoretically. So, you're not it's like you're not really losing out that much by choosing one or the other. So you kind of might as well just take the easier path and not piss people off with your vote. Like, let them take out Rob and then just feed into Jonathan. I can't believe they did that, right? And try to pull Jonathan, try to make sure Renee is still with you, and then just stoke a war from there, right? I feel like that's going to be, it's the path of least resistance, and I think it's the one that's much more likely to happen, given, very little information that we actually have. All right. Are we ready to rate the players?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it here. We will start with Anika, who, again, I feel like I know very little about at this point. She was on the block last week, not on the block this week. I do think that given an impending war, her position is not terrible. The guys think that she's under their control. Maybe she is. Maybe she's not. It would be nice to see that she's not. And like, it would be nice to see something that would show that she's not. But even if she is, that means that they shouldn't be coming for her anytime soon. And on the flip side, there's really no reason for the other side of the house to come for her. Nobody's going to take a shot at Anika thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to take out Anika to weaken Zach. Like, not if you're the other side, right? Because the war is heating up at this point. They're going straight for Rob, which is such a, I mean, we can talk about that. It's such a bad play in my eyes.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, yes, Rob is skeptical of Zach and he wants to do something about Zach at some point, but to take a shot at Rob so early, especially right after you took the shot at JM, you are setting a tone in the house of taking big shots. And starting wars when, we know, watching the show, that the kind of game that Zach is trying to play is hugely benefited by the summer camp mentality of like, we're all just friends. We're all just doing what the house wants. Nobody's making any bold moves. We're not taking out any big players. And if we do take out a big player, it's because the entire house agreed. Like that's kind of how you play this. And to make these like, boom, blindside, nobody sees it coming other than us, and it's a back door, is just like it's throwing the house into chaos. It's making people feel uncomfortable, and when they're uncomfortable, they want to do something about it. And that's where like a player like Anika would be in trouble in a summer camp season, where you're like, hey, Zach seems really popular. Anika's one of his numbers. What if a way to keep the calm in the house, but also weaken Zach, is to take out Anika? Like that's a very reasonable move in that kind of situation. I mean, reasonable under the circumstances. But in this spot, you're like, no, I'm going straight for Zach. We went straight for JM. We went straight for Rob.
Yep.
You go straight for Zach. Now Ty is still trying to play that way, and he's telling Santina, we go after Dan to weaken Zach. Which may or may not work, but that's only because Dan is also a massive player. And like he almost won a veto. He's now won an HOH. Like he's a very dangerous player. And so it kind of makes sense to take him out in order to weaken Zach. But I think Ty is the only person thinking that, because Ty is the only person that actually cares about Zach staying in the game at this point. So anyway, all that to say, I think the house is developing into a situation where Anika's position is not too bad. I also do, as Mari said, like her fight. She's in there. Like she's asking people to keep her safe. Like she's talking to people. I like all of that. I think the biggest knock against Anika is her just lack of experience in the game, right? She doesn't know the show very well. And I think that is a large part of what's causing her to have seemingly very bad reads. And so that's concerning. But if she has longevity in the game, that's an opportunity for her to learn. Like at the end of the day, watching the game, is great, but playing the game is like a crash course. And a lot of players have come in knowing nothing, and they learn as they go. And so I'm hoping that happens with Anika. I'm gonna give her a 4 this week, and in hope that there's some positives ahead. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, same here. She's going to get a 4 from me again, just because like I haven't really seen anything from, who knows at this point. There might be stuff that there's obviously stuff that we're missing, but there might specifically be stuff about Anika that like we're missing. But at this point, I haven't seen anything that's really given me confidence in her game. But like Taran said, if she might be one of those people that she sticks around a little bit and learns as she goes and becomes really good, etc. But for now, she's a 4 just because who knows.
Yeah. I too was going to give her a 4. I think the biggest concern for me is her position is good right now, right? Is good. So she's mentioned to Daniel she wants to play like that floater game. She's seeming to be playing that very well. She's under the radar, in with the right people, not seen as being completely in with them. The right people think she's in their pocket. So has a great position. And my concern about that is the longer this great position works for her, she might get complacent and stay in it. And by the time she realizes that she needs to kick it into a different gear or do something else, it'll be too late. And that is my biggest concern for Anika. But as of right now, she's positioned very well, all things considered, from what we know. So I'll give her a 4.
All right. Yes. And I think a key here for Anika is she needs to be able to know when to jump ship on Zach. And I think that she will. I don't think she's going to be like super loyal to Zach by any means. So
I hope not, because that first week it was sounding like he completely brainwashed her. Like every 2 seconds, she's like, well, Zach thinks, well, let's talk to Zach. You know what?
But that's because he was in power. I think if Zach is no longer in power, I think she recognizes, okay, time to leave. I think she's savvy like that, even though she doesn't have a lot of other like game sense necessarily. But we'll see. The audience agrees with us. They gave Anika a 4. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Claudia?
I guess same as last week, I guess. Like, I mean, I don't know. Nothing in my opinion has really changed about her. I think she's got the showmance thing going on, which could be good or bad for her, but we don't really know. At this point, I sense that it's a good thing, I guess, because, she's got some sort of in with the bros. Maybe she'll be spared. And then on the other hand, she has an in with the girls because it seems like, she's been in the discussions about like, the bros are forming something. We need to stick together, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't seem like she's really on people's radar. So at this point, I'm just going to stick with the 6 and hope for the best.
All right, Mari.
Yeah, for Claudia, it's really hard for us because we don't have the feeds. Because one of the things that we can glean from a showmance is how much the showmance is affecting somebody's game, right? And I think we can all agree that we thought that Claudia came out really strong that first week because she was able to read the house pretty well. She just didn't have any power to do anything about it. Now that she is in a showmance with Ty, one of the people, who is actively in power against the person in Zach, who she was previously wary of, I'm worried that now this new closeness with Ty will kind of, maybe not make her go for Zach as harsh. Like we're saying, she might keep Rob in order not to piss off Ty. You know what I'm saying? So, and unfortunately, unfortunately, I don't have the feeds to kind of know if they're just spending all of their day together. If they're, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't glean how big of an effect this showmance is having on her game. So I'll just keep her at what you guys had her last week and give her a 6 because I think she's getting really good information from the girls. She's getting information from Ty and Zach, but I'm very concerned about how the mind games that that Ty is putting her through, how will she lose sight? Will she lose sight? Like, I really don't want to see like another Sam and Adam Pike type situation. Like, I hope Claudia is keeping her head on her shoulders and is, using Ty for all that he's worth, and then can still play the game.
Yeah. Well, the audience a little bit lower on Claudia than the two of you. Gave her a 5 yet again. They did the same last week. But I agree with the two of you. I think that Claudia has all of the benefits of Anika's position, but with the added sort of knowledge that she is actively thinking a lot about where she wants to go in the game, seems to have much better reads, better connections, and like a better information network ultimately. From what we've seen, she doesn't seem like she is like just lockstep with Ty. Like, she is keeping things from him. And as long as that stays true, I think she'll be in a pretty decent position. Especially as like Ty is weakened in the game, he might start to need to rely on her more, which I think actually puts her in a pretty good position because it will, especially because he's not the primary target of the Zach situation. I think Zach and Dan are going to be the big kind of targets coming out of this week from people who aren't with Zach. And that's good for Ty as long as he's willing to jump ship from Zach, which he may not be. But even if he doesn't, sort of like leaving Ty behind as a target is still not a terrible position for Claudia. So I think I will go with a 6. I'm tempted to go to a 7. The only reason I'm not is that it's just like I still don't know exactly where she stands. And she doesn't seem to yet have any influence over the house. It's mostly just positional at this point, and it's just not quite all the way there yet for me with Claudia. But I do feel very hopeful about her position and her game. So 6 is it's going to be the same rating as last week, 6, 6, 6, and a 5. Mari, how do you feel about Daniel?
So I truly don't know much about Daniel's game other than him trying to talk a little bit of sense into Anika. I got nothing, Taran. I'm gonna give him a 5, but I want to know more, but did I miss something? I don't remember anything big from these drops from him.
Well, the audience agrees with you. The audience also gave Daniel a 5. I'm a little more hopeful on Daniel. I feel like I've since last week I've heard him talk to the cameras. I've heard him talk to Anika, and I got the confirmation that we kind of assumed, but like he's a game player. He knows what he's talking about.
Mhm.
He's actively working and thinking about where he wants to be in the game. In
Okay,
addition to that, we've seen he does have some connections that are good for him. He's got a connection to Anika. He's in with Kuzi. He does have a connection to the women. He also has a connection to the guys through Zach and them. So he's positionally, I think,
right.
very fine right now. Again, similar spot, shouldn't be targeted anytime soon. I think he's sort of like the other side of Claudia in a way, with just without a showman's. And I think Kuzi is another person sort of in this position, where it's like pretty safe on all sides, could
Mhm.
work with theoretically anyone, but also thinking pretty critically about the game. And so I'm really looking at them as like potential, power players later, even though they aren't right now. So I'm gonna give Daniel a 6. Just feeling a little more hopeful on him at this point, but
And he
can't be
what but
sure.
what he's a little bit skeptical of the girls though, right? The girls have
Yes.
included him in talks, but he's still a little wary of them.
Yes, they see.
Yeah,
So
I
they
remember now.
they seem to feel like Daniel is fine with them,
Mhm.
but he is like, still like, I don't know if I can trust them.
Right.
I'm
Right.
at the end of the day, I'm not one of them. Which I don't think is a terrible play on his end, but I think I'm gonna need to see like, okay, if you don't go with them, then where are you going?
Where are you going? Yeah.
And so that's definitely a concern. But at the same time, like, you know, if the women were a thing, they could have come together and saved JM last week, but they didn't.
Mm.
So there's, I think, a little bit of reason to be skeptical, especially when Santina is often in those talks, right? So, it's a tricky spot, and we just don't know a lot about his position otherwise. So
Yeah.
it's a hard one for sure. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like just because I don't know enough about where he is in the house or like what people are thinking about him, I feel like there's just I mean, I don't feel this.
Yeah.
I know there's so much that we're missing from other people talking about him. Like, I don't know what other people think of him or like
Yeah.
if he's in danger or what's going on. So for me, like, I don't know whether, he is in a good spot or not. Like, yeah, I think he has, decent reads on the situation or a mind for the game or whatever. Yeah, for sure. But like, what do other people think? Like, what's he doing with it? Like, does he have to, like, I don't know. So I'm
Great
going to give him
point.
a 5 as well, just because, like, I don't know.
All right. There you go. A 5 for Daniel. Let's talk about Dan. Let's talk about Dan Zabo. Well, okay, this one honestly, I'm looking at the rating. I was expecting much worse. The audience gave Dan a 4. A 4 for Dan this week.
Mhm.
I'm a lot lower on Dan. Now, here's the problem. I don't know a lot about what he's doing, but I can
Mhm.
see it from the outside. And I know that, last week I was trying to give Santina some benefit of the doubt. I gave her a 4 ultimately. I think I should have been lower. I think I should have been at least a 3. And one of the reasons why I felt okay is because at least with Santina's HOH, we were hearing from a lot of the guys, from a lot of the people in the house. They might have been upset with her. They might have thought
Mhm.
that it was shady, but nobody was talking about targeting Santina. And there were a lot of people that were talking about working with Santina. So even though I still think she made a mistake, it wasn't like a dire, you go home next week mistake. Whereas in the little we've seen of Dan's HOH so far, I have seen one of the two people who are pushing him into doing the thing he's doing that he probably wouldn't otherwise be doing, talking about
Mhm.
taking him out the very next week, and actively trying to push to make it happen. That's a really bad spot. This is like worst case scenario for HOH is that you are doing the dirty work of somebody who is planning your eviction next week. That's not good. And so I don't think I can go all the way down to a 1, but I will
Um,
definitely give him a 2 in this spot. just because, again, I don't think Rob is somebody that would have been really pushing, really gunning for him. Not only is he actively targeting somebody that I think was, at worst, like neutral to him.
Yep.
And at best, actively willing to work with him. Because listen,
Yeah.
Jonathan on today's drop was talking about how he wanted to create an alliance with Rob, Santina, and Dan.
Yeah.
This is a guy that wanted to work with him in an alliance. And he is targeting him on behalf of Zach and Ty while Ty signs his name in the death note. Okay? Like, this is not good. And
Yep.
And not only that, but he is actively doing this, and everybody sees that he's doing it for Zach. Everybody sees that he is doing Zach's dirty work, and so they see him as a Zach lackey, which means that if Zach goes on the block, he's probably going up with him. Or if they are afraid to take the shot at Zach, they will go take the shot at Dan because that's easier. And Zach will gladly let Dan go. So let me tell you, I want to go down to a 1, but it's just when I've seen 90 seconds of the guy, it's tough. But man, it's close.
Let me do it. Let me do it.
Okay.
I'll give him a 1 because why the hell not? You just explained clearly why he deserves to be 1 because this HOH isn't even he's not building a structure for himself.
Right.
He's not putting himself in a better position within the house. Like he's pissing off a good portion of people who want to keep both Rob and Renee and who will be in a position where they can't. And then the people that he's doing this for don't even have his back for next week. So give him a 1. Honestly, what are we even doing here?
There you go. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not a good HOH week for him. I mean, this is like supposed to be his comeback story because he, was on the block and now he wins HOH the week after. And it's like, that's the time that you create, like you said, a structure. You like try and form an alliance. You try and, make sure you're in good with people. And instead he's just putting up people who might have wanted to work with him. And, like you said, doing the work of Zach, and for no reason. And he's not going to get rewarded for it next week. And so, I mean, I just feel like it's not a great move. Like I want to give like points for being HOH, but I just feel like this is very similar to Santina's HOH last week, where she just did the dirty work of Zach and got rid of someone who wanted to work with her. So, I just think that this is a bad move. And I'm going to give Dan a 2.
All right. A 2 for Dan. All right. Let's move on to Hope. Hope, who got a 4 last week. Volunteered for the block this week and was actively trying to go home for at least a little while. Seems like that's turned around, but I don't love it.
Right.
It's not great. He's I think on the block right now. He will be coming off, but it's possible he's on an upward swing. But the thing about people who talk about quitting is that if they talk about it once, they're probably going to talk about it again. It's like, yeah, you feel good now, but the next time something hard comes up, is it going to come back around? And on top of that, I think it's a lot harder to win the game if you talk about quitting. I think like even in a world where Hope gets all the way to the end and he's in the final 2, you remember like, bro, you were about to quit. Granted, Dr. Will was somebody who talked about quitting once upon a time. But I do still think that this is like, it's not great. Now, I don't think that Hope is actually in much danger moving forward. I don't think it's like the worst place in the world, but the talk about quitting alone, the getting himself nominated for no reason, it's really bad. And so I think I'll go with a 3 for Hope. I could have gone lower, but I do think that, is he realistically going anywhere anytime soon unless he actively walks out the door? Probably not. So there's going to be a lot of time for him to turn this around. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's, talked about quitting and saying that this is so hard for him and everything, and there really hasn't been that much that's happened yet. Like, it's only like the second week. So, for me, that's
Well,
not great. It doesn't seem like he has his head in the game. It doesn't seem like he even has a head for the game. Like, it doesn't seem like this is really for him. And so I don't even know. Like, I think like even if you were to like quote unquote turn it around and be like, actually, I want to stay and play. Like, I just don't even think he'd be good at it. I'm just not getting any indication that like he really knows what's going on and that he's like really in it. So for me, like I have to give him a 2 because I just feel like if someone's trying to quit and saying it's too hard, like it's not. And even like I feel like there's a difference between being like for example, like Vanessa first week of Big Brother 17 where she's like crying and having a really tough time. Okay, whatever. But like actively saying like put me on the block, I want to go home, I'm done, and then the person puts you on the block, like that's too far, like that's too close to the edge. Like it's one thing to be sad and be like this is really hard and I'm having a tough time, and then another thing to actually be like put me on the block, I want to go, and then maybe you stay, but even so you were on the block almost out the door, like not good.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Melissa. But also, we don't know what this mysterious incident is that he clearly has rubbed people the wrong way, but seems to have the personality that he's kind of bounced back from it to the point where we keep hearing people say, like, oh, we gotta calm Hope down. We gotta like make sure he doesn't, do anything. Like, I don't know what happened. We of course we
Mm-hmm.
don't know what happened, but it definitely suggests that he lost footing in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I think what happened is once he said he wanted to leave, people were like, "Oh no, Hope, please stay." you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Okay, sure. I feel better now," but I those same problems are probably going to keep happening.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, is it a BBCAN 8 situation where people don't wanna waste their HOH on somebody who wants to quit? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
will people not put him on the block because they're like, "Dude, this is my HOH that I earned, and I'd rather take out an actual target, a target that I wanna get out as opposed to wasting it on you." You know what I'm saying? So, because of that, he might be able to stay a little bit longer, but I agree with Taran. There's like no way that he's gonna like legit being like all in for this and not have those feelings come back, especially with him being a recruit that he clearly is a recruit that did not realize like
Mm-hmm.
he is overwhelmed with what's going on. I believe
And even
from
in
what we're
that
hearing.
scenario that you just described where he like they keep him around because they don't want to waste their HOH and he gets dragged to the end, like that's not a winner. Like they're not gonna be like,
Right.
oh well, we dragged you to the end because you were like easy to keep around and you didn't really care about the game. Like now we'll give you the win. Like I just feel like even if that happens, he's not gonna get the win. Everything I've seen from him has been just like constantly people like having to, cheer him up or like talk him
Yes.
down from something or
Yeah.
whatever. And there's never like just any good like strategic conversations that I've seen. It's absolutely possible that we're just not being shown good strategic
Uh-huh.
conversations, but from what I've seen, it's just not, he just doesn't have, what it takes to, make it in the game. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that can start to be draining as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he continues to have to if go to people and people have to continue to prop him up, that could be draining for them to the point where they do
Mm-hmm.
want to get rid of him because they're tired of him complaining. So I'm gonna give him a 2. I'm gonna give him a 2 as well. I'm sorry. I'm down on a lot of these players.
All right. Well, the audience a little bit higher on Hope. They gave him a 3
Mhm.
as I did. Okay, let's move on then to Jonathan. Melissa, how do you feel about Jonathan?
Um, I don't know. I feel okay about Jonathan, I guess. I mean, if Rob goes out this week, that's like a very bad situation for him because Rob is an ally of his. Um, but I think like also I feel like there have been conversations where it seems like he doesn't really have like it in him for like the strategy of the game and like
Mhm.
cutthroatness of the game. Maybe you don't need that, but like for the most part, you kind of do, or at least have like some sort of, ability to do that. And yeah, just really the fact that he's losing like one of his biggest allies so early, like is really not good for him. And also the fact that like he's kind of seen as an outsider to like the bros alliance of like Ty and Zach because of his connection to Rob. Like it's possible that Rob goes and then they bring him in, but it's also possible that Rob goes and they're like, yeah, he wasn't with us. He was with Rob anyway. So for me, I think he's playing similarly to last week, but because he's losing his ally, he goes down for me. So it's a 5.
5 from Melissa. Mari, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with all that, but also not only is he going to be losing his ally Rob, but he's going to be blindsided by this by another person who he was thinking about being an ally, Dan. Plus, Ty and Zach aren't telling him anything about this. So at least from what we think might be going on in the drops, because he seems to not know that Rob is the intended target, and I'm really questioning like what we're missing and what we did not see, because it looked like him, Ty, and Zach, and that this whole boys alliance was really tight, and everybody said they wanted to work with Jonathan and include Jonathan, but the boys aren't doing that. But that could be a good thing for Jonathan, because remember, people like Daniel are like, oh, I can work with Jonathan. Jonathan's in the middle. And we kept being like, is Jonathan in the middle? Because we thought he was working with the boys. Yes. Once they make this move, it could place him firmly in the middle. I'm hoping that Daniel will recognize that and might be able to try and pull him before Zach and Ty try and pull him, So I do think his position definitely will be less after this week, but I still don't think it's scary yet. So I'm gonna give him a 6, because if anybody can make something good happen from this, I think Jonathan has the capital to. Now, will he? Does he have the strategic mind? That might be another question.
Yeah. All right. Well, the audience does agree with you, Mari. They gave Jonathan a 6 as well. In fact, Jonathan was the second highest rated player of the week this week from the audience. I'm a little skeptical, though. Okay, so here's the thing. Jonathan's a weird player because last week I gave him the highest rating. And honestly, I still feel like socially, he is one of the best players in there. Nobody says a bad word about Jonathan. The worst thing we've heard about Jonathan came today when Ty was saying he's too close to Rob, essentially. But he loves Jonathan. And, in talking about like, well, will Ty and, Zach cut ties with Jonathan? The thing is, they don't really have another choice than to try and still work with Jonathan, because if they cut Jonathan out, who's left? Ty wants Dan out. They might think they have like the Daniels and the Kuzis and the Nikas and the Santinas of the world, but like, do they really? Right. And so, I think they do still want to work with Jonathan. And if they don't have Jonathan, they're in a lot of trouble. And I think they'll recognize that. But I also have no idea like where Jonathan will go from here, because there's a lot of ways that he could actively sink his position when Rob goes on the block. Like he could actively declare war on Zach and Ty and become kind of like the poster boy for the anti-Zach Ty sentiment, which is great for everyone else in the house, not great for him. And so I can see a lot of places where like this could all go downhill for him. But I'm still tempted to be like, he's doing well for his own position. Everybody likes him. Daniel wants to work with him. Santina wants to work with him. Kuzi wants to work with him. Like people like Renee and Shania want to work with him. Like all angles of the house, they all want to work with Jonathan, but he is being put into a situation this week that is not good. And I still don't have enough of a sense of his strategic capability to know if he's going to be able to manage it properly. So for now, I am kind of leaning on the Melissa end of things and giving him a 5. And that's because I feel like things could rebound this week pretty easily, but they could also sink pretty easily from here.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of just teetering on the edge in terms of where it's going to go. And so a 5 is where I will go. Let's move on then to Kuzi. Mari, how do you feel about Kuzi?
Oh my God, I love Kuzi. Oh my God. No, no, I do enjoy that Kuzi seems to be, from the snippets that we get, she knows a lot about what's going on in the house. From my understanding, if it hasn't changed, I feel like Zach and Ty, well, especially her and Ty, are very close. So she does seem to have their protection. She also has Daniel. Her and Daniel are really close. And she also sees the girls, what the girls are doing. I feel like she's not being as included with the girls as I feel like I would want her to be. I don't think the girls bring her into everything that they're doing. So that can be concerning. And she even realizes, like, she recognized Santina not telling her about her plans and stuff like that. So she kind of has her eye on Santina. But the good thing is that Kuzi seems very hyper vigilant about what's going on. She seems like she can be very flexible to what's going on from what we know of. We know she's a super fan, so that's automatically will help her in a house that feels like it's shifting. Like this, we're actually, the only good thing about this season is there's no solid power structure as of this week, now that the boys are deciding to take Rob out. So with that being said, I think Kuzi is in a great position. We still don't have any resolve about the friction between her and Zach, as far as I understand. So that might be something to keep our eyes on within these edited episodes here. But I would like to give Kuzi a 7 because that's what I'm gonna do. And I love her. And I think she's doing okay.
All right, a 7 from Mari. The audience, a little bit lower on Kuzi, but she was the highest rated player from the audience. They gave her a 6. This is another. I am tempted to go to a 7 for Kuzi. And I do think that she would also be my highest rated player of the week. The question is, like, is she as high as a 7? And it's just so hard without knowing enough about, like, her actual position.
Right.
I like her. I think she has good instincts. I think her position is pretty good. But it's to me, it's similar to, I really see her, Claudia, and Daniel as kind of like the 3 people that are in good with all sides, but don't really have a side of their own.
Right.
And that's the danger of Kuzi's position, is that I need her to have something solid that I don't know that she has. So that's where my hesitation comes in. But I do still feel like she is my top player, but I think she's going to be a top 6 player for me. I think she could move up from here, but there's also, like, again, she has to navigate what could be a tricky week this week, with Rob going up and her connection to Jonathan and Renee and all of that. So I think how she comes out of this week will say a lot, and I think it could be very good, or it could, I don't think she, like, tanks like Jonathan could,
Right.
but I think that she might kind of fall back into, like, an okay spot versus a potential to reach a high spot. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Kuzi in the house. I think that she I think I have the most confidence in her ability out of everyone at this point. I just think that she has really good reads as far as I'm aware. Like, obviously we don't know everything, so we can't, know if she does have really good reads. But from what I'm seeing, it seems like she understands what's going on in the house and, like, kind of what she needs to do. But, like you guys said, like she doesn't quite have like a solid structure for herself yet, but the hope is that she will get there. But I am very impressed with what she's been doing so far. So I'm going to give her a 6.
All right. Let's move on then to Renee. And I will start with the audience. Wow, that was a close one. A 3.50 on the dot. So the audience will give Renee a 4 this week. Shouldn't have gone there. I think just 1/100th of a point less, and you would have been more on board, on point there, audience. This isn't a great week for Renee. I mean, she's on the block. Likely will be on the block against Rob, who is an ally of hers. And so even if she does stay, which she probably will, but not a guarantee, she's still losing a valuable ally. And it's probably not going to be a clean campaign either. Like I think there's going to be a lot of talk about like reasons to take out Renee, and like that's damaging to your game overall, even if you do end up staying. And even worse than that is that if Jonathan is like a pro Rob campaigner, which he likely is going to be, that does a lot of damage to the relationship between Jonathan and Renee, and that's a relationship she needs in the game. I think like the Jonathan is a valuable piece to be pulled. And ideally, she comes out of this week losing Rob, gaining Jonathan. But that's going to be hard to do when she's having to campaign against Rob and seemingly Jonathan. So that's not great. All of that said, from last week, I feel much better about her as a player. I think she's in a rough spot, but I don't think it's like super her fault. I think that she's honestly probably in this position because she was on the block last week, because she lost in that dead last twist. I think she's a much more capable player than she might end up getting credit for, at least so far. She like socially is kind of fine, and strategically like a bit more on point than I think the average player of this cast. So I'm actually not that down on her strategically, but her position this week is not good. I mean, she's on the block and it's bad all the way around. So I'm going to go with a 3 overall. Higher on her as a player, but her position I think is even worse than last week. So that's kind of where I'm falling. Melissa, what do you think?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I feel so much better about her. I feel like I thought like, I guess I had a bad interpretation of her and thinking that, she just really had no idea what was going on. It was kind of just like there. And it was like,
well,
okay,
her
like,
performance in the challenge was not great.
Yeah, but I feel like who cares about the challenge? Who cares about the competitions? Not me. So, that's how I would perform in the competition. So I can't really judge that one. But no, I think that she's done, like, she's impressed me. It's not like amazing strategy or anything like that, but I think in terms of like socially and like her observations and the way she's like interacting with people, I think I've been way more impressed with her than I was last week. And I think had she not been on the block, I probably would have gone up to like a 5 or something. But at this point, because she's still on the block, it's not great for her. There's always a chance she could go. She's in a similar spot this week now that she's on the block. So I'm going to give her a 3.
Yep. Same. I'm gonna give her a 3. I too, like, I didn't realize how much I would like seeing her on these daily drops. I did like her conversation with Kuzi. I think she's building a really good. She always seems like that shoulder that people can cry on, and she knows exactly what to say to people to make them feel better. But it's all about positioning. She's in a horrible position. Rob's going home. Jonathan might campaign against her, and then her other ally, Hope, all her men allies are just falling left and right. Hope wants to go home. The good thing is she has such a good rapport with the rest of the girls, Santina, Shania, Kuzi. Like that is working for her. So, but she comes off as expendable to the Zach and Ties of the house. So I feel bad for her, but it's going to be a 3.
All right, let's move on to Rob then, the intended target of the week, seemingly. As we kind of pointed out, I feel like he's in a lot of trouble. It's hard to like specifically point out where he went wrong, because I think the biggest thing to point out is that he shouldn't have lent Claudia his sweater. Like that's probably the biggest flaw in his game. But on top of that, you also have to look at, of course, like he's trusting Ty way too much. He has not been able to recognize that Ty has been anti him for the last like 10 days.
Right.
And he never saw it, and that's no good. On top of that, like he is like just I think he's struggling to navigate how he wants to like have relationships with women in the house. Like he has this sort of like flirtmance with Santina, but that's only making Zach and Ty more concerned. He has this sort of flirtmance with Shania, but he also doesn't want to like lead her on. And so that's causing some tension in that relationship. And Santina doesn't really know where she stands with Rob because of all like there's just like I feel like he's kind of put himself in a tricky situation, not like entirely like his fault, but like, you know, this is the kind of thing that you need to be aware of and on top of when you're playing a game like this is like, how are these situations going to come off? And I think he's struggling with it. And I think the main thing that I would point out again about Rob is that like, when I see him on the drops, he's talking to allies. He's talking to people that like him. And I'm not seeing him socialize a whole lot with other people. And that may or may not be what's actually happening. But, you know, I don't think that like, I think he has like a strong core base, but I don't know that he has like a lot of pull elsewhere. And that's where it could have been valuable in the exact spot that he's in right now. Like if he had a good relationship with Daniel, with like a better relationship with Kuzi, or even like Claudia, like if he had those relationships, I think that maybe there's a chance he'd have a much better chance at surviving this attack. So I'm not like actually that low on him as a player overall. We can always look for flaws, but his position does seem fairly dire at this point. So I think I am going to go with, this might be too low, but I think I am going to go with a 2 for Rob. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I was between a 2 and a 3, to be honest, just because like he's not like for sure going home yet. And I feel like we gave JM a 2 last week when we knew like he's gone. And I just feel like there is a chance that he could stay, but even if he stays, I feel like he's still in danger, and I'm not so overly impressed with him yet. So I don't know if he could really turn it around, and I really don't even know if he could turn it around and stay this week. So I don't know. I think like he's like you said, like the whole like no showmance, like kind of showmance thing is like not great for him. And I think especially with the conversation that went on between him and Shania, like I just feel like that's not great, because now she's probably for sure going to vote for Renee to stay over him, when previously maybe she would have kept him because, you know, like the hope that they could be together or whatever. Now she's like, I need to take a step back, and like, what's the best way to take a step back and not be tempted by someone that is not interested in you? Vote them out the house. Like, stay far, far away from them. Like, I feel like that's probably like
the Willie Hance play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not Willie Hance. No, the other one.
Not Russell.
It's a Survivor reference.
Yeah.
Brandon Hance.
Brandon,
right?
Yeah.
Some Hance. But yeah, so it's like I don't think it's great for him in terms of like what he's been kind of doing this week. And like that's the thing also, is like I don't fault him for being like, I'm not interested in you. That's not like, you don't need to be interested in someone. But like, I'm just saying in terms of the rating, that's not great for him to have someone who, you know, just had this whole conversation with him. But anyway, so yeah, I'm going to give him a 3.
All right.
Yeah.
Mari?
It's so hard being hot, you know. Rob,
too many people are interested in him.
Too many options, too many people you have to let down easily. Rob, I don't know how Rob got into this position, to be quite honest. He probably doesn't know how he got into this position, because I truly believe he fully trusts Ty. And the Shania stuff couldn't come at the worst of time. So it's just like I'm gonna give him a 2, because yeah, if he does turn this around, I don't know what he's gonna do after. If say he manages to stay, I don't know what he'll do once he stays. So I'm gonna just give him a 2 because I don't have faith in him as a player. Now, being on the block might be a wake-up call, but I don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, the audience a little bit higher on Rob. They gave Rob a 4. Also a pretty close one. He was a 3.52. So he was 2/100ths of a point above Renee, but also barely makes the 4. So that actually leaves Hope as the lowest rated player from the audience, followed by Renee and then Rob.
Everybody
So
thought he was going home.
the audience is kind of on one, I think, today. It's all right. Let's move on to Santina. And I think I started with Rob. So Melissa, what are your thoughts on Santina?
I guess I feel better about her this week than I did last week when she was kicking out her ally. But, I don't feel so great just because I do think there is still that stigma surrounding her of like, oh, she like was snowed by Zach and she, made this bad move. She's not really an independent player. She's not, whatever. However, I do think she is making good strides with some other people in the house and like talking with them and things like that. The conversation that we saw between her and Ty today wasn't so good. It felt like it wasn't so good. And it felt like she was giving too much information to Ty about not wanting to work with Zach or about not trusting Zach or whatever, or having a hard time talking to Zach. And I feel like telling Zach's biggest ally, like that information is not really great. But I think, I might just like increase my score to be at what you guys, or I guess what the score was with everyone else last week. So I think I'll just go up to a 4.
All right, Mari.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna also say a 4. I think because from what she's saying, she's realizing that the strings are there. Now, if she can cut those strings and detach herself from the puppet master in a way that improves her lot in the game, then I think she has a real shot to last long enough to continue to build trust with other people. Like, say Santina wins HOH again next week and she's the one that puts Zach on the block, something like that. Like, say she puts up Zach and I doubt she'd put up Ty, but maybe say she goes all in and puts up Zach and Ty and tries to prove to the house like, I want to make bold moves. I want to, I learned from my mistake, whatever. Then maybe she could turn it around. I'm gonna just go with the 4 because I think she's capable. I do think she's capable.
All right. The audience also gave Santina a 4. And I will as well. I'd be willing to go to a 5 if I had faith that she actually meant it when she said she didn't trust Zach and wanted to bail from that situation. But I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. And I think her worst case scenario is, even if they do go after Zach, she kind of just goes down with the Ty ship even. I just feel like she's overcommitted to that side. I think that there are still people in the house that feel a little skeptical, about her after last week. So I think she still needs some time to recover from the mistake she made before. And she will also need to play more on point to make sure no more mistakes are made as she recovers from that position. So yes, a 4 from me.
Taran, what if she won HOH and truly solidified a girls' alliance? You know what I'm saying? Truly solidified a girls' alliance with Santina, Renee, Shania, and Claudia, assuming Renee stays, and then have an outer layer of Kuzi and Daniel or something to that effect. I truly think she could build a structure, but I don't know if she recognizes that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have to be something that looked like that. I think that a women's alliance on its own is she'd be at the bottom of it because she didn't connect with them in the same way that they, I think, connected with each other last week. So so she needs something where it's okay, one thing over here, and I'm in the middle of both of those. And I don't know. I just don't know that she's a player capable of doing that.
Yeah.
Her conversation with Jonathan, I think she kind of meant it. Like, I wanted to put JM straight up on the block. I didn't want to
Yeah, that's
backdoor him,
true.
which is true. Like, she didn't want to do it. Like she wants to play a more, like, I think and this is part of what left her vulnerable, I think, but she wants to play a "this is my team" kind of game. And the team she chose was not a good team. And so now she's going to be looking for a new one. And even if she does find one, I think she's not going to be in a good position within it, because she
Mm.
never, built anything. So we'll see. We'll see. Let's talk about Shania. Mari, how do you feel about Shania?
So, Shania, I think maybe when Rob goes, if he goes, then maybe she could get her head fully in the game. I think she's doing a great job of connecting with Renee, the Renees and the Claudias and the Santinas of the world. But for me, she hasn't done much. Am I forgetting her something again with her? Like, I don't. I just think this whole Rob thing really is affecting her to the point that she wasn't really focused on the game. So she got her rejection. She cried it out with the women. I think she is good socially. She cried it out with the women, and now Rob goes home. Maybe she can actually like legit get her head in the game because I don't truly know if she has been from what
Mhm.
but I don't know. So I will give her a 4 as well. I think her and Santina are kind of in a similar position, but she has way better social ties. So I'll say 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, well, the audience does agree with you. They gave Shania a 4 as well. I think I'm a little higher on her, though.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
Renee continues to be the target over her in their duo. I think
Oh, that's
Renee
true.
stays this week and will likely continue to still be more targeted than Shania is. And then on top of that, I do think that her social ties are pretty decent. I think she's in a better spot than Santina is. And with Rob leaving, like, it does kind of, I hopefully sort of like clear her head in terms of playing the game. And on top of all of that, we have this weird Dan situation where,
Oh, right.
like, for as much as Zach was like, yeah, I planted the seed, it seems like maybe it is also a little, at least a little bit true.
The
Like, they
inception.
all really believe that Dan is super into Shania.
Is it
Uh,
yeah, like, is that true? Like, I feel like have we seen any indication other than other people
Not from
talking
Dan.
about it? Yeah.
True now. It's
I
true
don't
now.
know.
But that's the thing. Even if Dan wasn't super into Shania, the fact that like everyone thinks he is, and that she might be now like more open to him as a person because she thinks that he likes her, like that
Mhm.
by itself could sort of like start more of a at least even game relationship. So um I think that that's a good thing, especially especially if Dan is going to continue to win competitions. Especially if like Zach does get targeted over Dan or anything like that. If Dan stays in the game, especially if Zach leaves and Dan becomes a free agent and she's able to pick him up, like that's not a bad place to be for Shania. So I do think she has some upside. And I don't really see any reason for her to be in a lot of danger anytime soon. So I'm gonna give her a 5. That's about where I am. I know that the latest drop was like not the best look for Shania, but I think that's all personal, and I think that her game is actually in a decent place here. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I just feel like because I haven't seen enough from her, I just feel like I don't really know what's going on. I don't know whether she's in a good spot or a bad spot. I don't know if she like has any like strategic chops for the game or not. And I feel like the only thing we've seen of her is like this will they, won't they, oh no, they actually won't situation. So yeah, I'm gonna give her a 4 as well, just because I hope to see something more, but I don't know yet.
All right, let's move on then to Ty. I can tell you the audience gave Ty a 5 this week, down from the 6 they gave him last week. And I have to agree that I am not as high on Ty this week as I was last week. And I was skeptical last week. He was in a good position, but I was worried. And now I feel like his position is a little worse, and I'm even more worried. Again, I feel like going after, like, yes, he's getting his way. Rob is being targeted. And on top of that, Zach is taking all the blame for it. Those are ostensibly great things. And Zach, I'm sure, or Ty, I'm sure, is feeling very good about this. He's like, yeah, everything's working out. But I don't know that he's seeing the big picture. And that's everything we talked about with like these big targets setting the pace of the game right now. Zach becoming this big target, him going after Dan next week is a very strange decision in my mind, because if you are about to lose Jonathan, you're already barely hanging on to Santina. I don't know. I really feel like Anika could easily be a free agent if you lose Power. Like you kind of need your numbers, and Dan is a great number for you to have to replace Rob with. Like is Hope still there for you? Like, I don't know. Do you know? Probably not. So like you should be holding on to Dan, in my opinion. But he actively wants to target Dan. I mean, imagine he got his way for a third week in a row and Dan left next week. Like, what does his game look like from there? Like, I don't know. It just feels very, very risky. That said, he shouldn't be in danger like super soon with Dan and Zach and potentially some other big targets out there. His social game is still like fine. Like his position hasn't crumbled yet, but I just feel like the walls are closing in on him. So I'm going to agree with the audience. I'm going to give Ty a 5 here. Again, like getting his way this week in an okay position, like in the very short term, but long term, it just looks like I don't know where this goes. Mario or Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a really bad move for Ty. And I think the fact that he's so tied with Zach and the fact that everyone now is seemingly clocking Zach and that Zach is like controlling these HOHs and he's like, in power and, blah, blah, blah. And the fact that they recognize that Ty is his like number one ally, I feel like that's just such a dangerous position because like, if next week comes around and it's like, hey, we got to take a shot at Zach, Ty is going to go up there on the block with Zach. It's going to be the two of them. And, if Zach ends up winning the veto or something, then Ty goes. Like, I just feel like tying yourself to that type of player that people are kind of like leery about is like not great, especially because like they were in such a power position last week with the whole Bros Alliance, but they're totally imploding it from the inside out. Like, I don't know what their thinking is here. I just think it's not good playing. And so at this point, like I have to give him a 4 because I'm just not impressed.
All right, Mari.
Well, everybody say thank you, Ty and Zach, for completely destroying the Boys Alliance. So hopefully
they did. They're like 1-2 punching it like they're Kyle Moore,
Yeah. Ty feels like it feels like a victory for him because he has wanted Rob out since week 1. So he's getting his way. He's not in the forefront, but I don't know. You guys said it all. You truly said it all. I'm just rambling here, but I don't know if he's just, I don't want to say arrogant, but arrogant. I think he's thinking if he gets rid of all of the other strong dudes who can win comps against him, then he can kind of beast it out. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is shoddy thinking because you never want to have to rely on comps. Unfortunately, he might be right from what of the comps that we've seen so far. But that is my only thought process as to why he wants to get out Dan next. He wants to get out the people he sees as a physical threat to him. But it just doesn't make sense in the long run. And this does make sense for somebody who has such limited knowledge of the game itself. 5. Because his position is okay. He's calling the shots. Like he is calling the shot. Him and Zach are calling the shots, but everybody.
Yeah, but the shots are wrong.
Yes.
I will say
like he is in power, but
I was very tempted to go to a 4, and I think that if I had live feeds to confirm my theories on Ty and his position, I probably would be more confident going down to like a 4 or maybe even a 3. But there is a layer of like uncertainty, and when
I feel like with my uncertainty, I go lower. Like I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what's going on here, so I'm not going to give him a good score.
It's a perfect compliment then.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to Vanessa. And I think the audience starts with
I think
Vanessa.
you start because I think
I
go
start with
Zach.
Vanessa.
Yeah.
Yes, Ty started with the audience. Okay. So Vanessa, last week we gave her 5s. The audience gave her a 4. Honestly, I think we still haven't really seen anything from Vanessa. But if anything, like, I think the only thing I've really seen from Vanessa is that, like, nobody really talks game with her, except for Kuzi sometimes. And so I do think I have to drop her from a 5 to a 4. She's not really involved in the game, and that's like, even if she's not going to be targeted soon, like, it's just not a good place to be. And I don't think she's like completely out of it yet, but like very few people even factor her into anything.
Ugh.
Like it's just not great. So it's gonna be a 4 for Vanessa.
Same.
Yeah.
4 for me as well because, first week, okay, it's okay that you're not, fully in it with everyone speaking game or talking game or having people talk about you or whatever. That's fine. But I feel like now that we're in the second week, you would think there'd be something going on and we're not seeing that yet. So when we do start to see that, if we do start to see that, then like obviously bump her back up again. But right now, like we're just not really seeing anything of her. And it's kind of getting to be too late to not see anything. So, 4s for me.
Fours across the board. I'll give her a 4. It's that old adage of like, if people like, if they don't see you or they're treating you like you're not there, it's easy for you to get kicked out. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how I see her. We don't see her on any of the jobs. It's like even production thinks she could go home.
Okay,
At
who?
this point. They're like,
Yep.
well, you don't need to know what Vanessa's doing. So
She's just
I
bashing me anyway.
yeah, I feel bad for her. Again, this like these are the people who get affected by not having feeds.
Mhm.
The people who might not be in the power positions, who aren't getting included in game talks. At the very least, she could be so fun on the feeds, and we would not know. And at the very least, she could be like Twitter, yes, slay, mama, mother, but she's not
Yeah,
even
we'll
getting
never
that.
know.
We'll
Yeah.
never know. So it's unfortunate.
I feel so bad for the house guests. It really sucks for
Yeah.
them.
All right. Well, the audience also gave her a 4, so it's going to be straight 4s for Vanessa. And then finally, Zach. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Zach?
I think, okay, yes, he is controlling the HOH once again, but he's doing it to make a bad move in my perspective. He's same with Ty. They're blowing up the Bros Alliance from the inside out. And I also like feel like differently from last week. This week it does seem like everyone is like very well aware that he's controlling this and everyone, is understanding like, oh, Zach's in control. He's a danger. We need to do something about him. Whereas last week it was kind of like spoken about a little bit like, does it seem like she's doing Zach's move? Like maybe, but now they're like, okay, he is in control. We need to do something. So I absolutely see a situation where someone takes a shot at him sooner rather than later. He's way too out front. It's just not, he's not playing it right. Like, I feel like there's a way to kind of manipulate people or control the HOHs, but not being so far out there, especially so early. I just feel like it's too much, too fast. And so, I got to drop him down to a 4.
4. All right, Mari.
Yeah, I'm really wavering here between a 4 and a 3 because I'm like, if I'm gonna give Josh the exact same Zach the exact same rating as I'm giving Vanessa, I feel like that doesn't make sense in my eyes. I mean, I'm giving a 4 to Vanessa as somebody who's not included in anything when Zach is the person who's calling the shots, but like Melissa said, making the completely wrong shots. That is really just torpedoing his own game. So I kind of feel like I need to put him down to a 3 because he's truly just making um a decision that is really detrimental for him because as far as we know, Rob was not coming for him. Rob was willing to work with him for a few more weeks. The decision to put Rob up, while not including Jonathan in that decision, can very much backfire on him. Now, like Melissa said, everybody knows that this is Zach's move. That's what he's telling everybody. So the people who are going to be mad that they are losing either a Renee or a Rob are going to probably want vengeance against him. And then on top of that, he has no plans of taking Dan and having Dan help him further in the future. He's actually planning on cutting Dan down the line too. So
Well,
none of this makes any sense.
just to be clear on that, Ty has not talked to Zach about, yes, Ty has not talked to Zach about cutting Dan. He said actively to
Okay.
not tell Zach about it.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. So that's a little bit better. That is a little bit better. But this is 2 weeks in a row where Zach is getting rid of somebody who would have, from what we know, had his back. And he has all the power. And I think he's thinking that if he has all the power and he has control over everybody, that it's okay for him to lose some pieces. But I don't think he's realizing that when he's chopping off some of these pieces that he thinks is expendable, that people are seeing him think that people are expendable. And then they're thinking, well, now am I expendable to him? So just because we can't confirm that he's going after Dan, then I'll give him a 4.
All right.
I said all that to give him a 4.
The audience actually gave him a 5 this week, so a little bit higher on Zach. I agree with the two of you, though. I'm gonna give him a 4. I also considered a 3, but the thing is, Big Brother's a game that can change on a dime, which is you'd think is a bad thing for Zach, but it could also be a good thing for Zach. Like, if Ty won HOH next week, or if like one of the people that wouldn't target Zach wins HOH next week, he's got a whole week to like kind of like fade back in and not be, this inevitable downfall that it seems like he's currently having. That said, he's having a downfall. I mean, this is not great. He's, when Santina's questioning you, when you are sort of the name that's out there as the guy that's running HOHs, there's a lot of momentum for a Zach eviction, and it could easily happen in the next couple of weeks. I think his biggest mistake was something that we didn't see in the drops, that we only saw in the episode, which is the push for JM to be a backdoor. And obviously, the push for JM to be a target at all was a mistake, and probably a bigger one. But like in terms of this guy's lack of subtlety, and you probably could have seen this coming, a lack of subtlety from his intro video, but there was no reason for him to push so hard to get Santina to backdoor JM versus put JM straight up. She would have put JM straight up and felt like it was mostly her decision and it would have been fine. But when she wanted to put him up initially and Zach pushed back so hard to make sure that JM was a backdoor, it became very clear to Santina that Zach was pushing his own agenda on her. And that's why she's been able to talk about it and realize it and tell other people about it. And so he became the guy that was running her HOH. And now, for a second week in a row, he is the guy that's running Dan's HOH, and everybody knows about it. He has no subtlety, and that's creating an issue for him that is very possibly going to lead to an eviction again in the next couple of weeks. But at the same time, we've seen this happen before. There's like momentum. Everybody's against Zach. But then if he's able to sort of survive a week or two, the fact that everyone's against him starts to work in his favor. And it's like, well, nobody really wants to work with Zach anymore. So is he really that much of a threat worth taking out when we've got other people who are more dangerous, like maybe even Ty? So who knows? But definitely not looking good for Zach this week. It's a downward trend. So there we go. That is the stock watch for the week. Quite the fall. He was a 7 last week, not because of me. And down to a 4 this week. A lot of falls here in the stock watch. Rob from a 6 to a 3. Kuzi rises from a 5 to a 6. I think is she the only person that went up? I think so.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, and as you can see, the average has changed from a 5 to a 4. So,
not great.
All right, that is the stock watch for the week. We did it. Look at 2 hours. How did that happen?
Pretty good. We had stuff to talk about. We thought we weren't going to have anything, so we made it happen.
Yeah.
Turns out if you rant for 30 minutes about the lack of feeds and how much we're upset, we can take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can pat it.
All right. Any final thoughts on the week, Melissa?
No, No, just, I really hope that they can get it together with the daily drops, or at least like, I hope that they make some sort of announcement. I hope they say something. Like, I just feel like there's been no communication, and I would like something just to, even just to be like, we're sorry, we suck, I don't know, just something. But instead we get nothing. So whatever.
There you go. Mari, any final thoughts?
No, I think this week's episodes will be not interesting to watch, but um very eye-opening. I think if this week's episodes are not good and we all feel like we still don't know what's going on after this whole week of episodes, then I can definitely see that these ratings might plummet. So
All
that's
right.
it.
I think we do have an updated leaderboard. Lots of people tied for first place who went in on Kuzi, who had the best return. And let me see if I can. Let's see if I can quickly pull this. I'm not super set up to show the leaderboard, unfortunately. This is an OBS problem. They messed me up with their change in virtual cameras. But let me see if I can possibly pull up the stock watch leaderboard here. Here it is. There it is. Look at that. So we got some first placers here.
There.
In winning on Kuzi, and then I don't know who did the next best in stuff, but let's see. Where am I?
Bill Hall. I saw Bill Hall's name.
65th. Not bad. I went in on Jonathan. Not as good as Kuzi, but what are you gonna do?
I forgot to enter.
Melissa forgot to enter.
Yeah,
I just totally spaced
too.
out. Big Brother Canada was a thing, and I was just like, wait, whoops. So yeah, not great, but I will. I'll do it.
All right. Okay. Well, that's what we have for you then. Thank you all for joining us here this week. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, we'll have a Monday drop to talk about that week too. And we won't have to talk about things that we don't know, like nominations. And we'll be back tomorrow for the Tuesday night episode where we will see some things like Dan winning HOH. So tune in for that. I will, of course, be live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, watching the episode live with all of you. Check out the Survivor stock watch that I did earlier today if you want to see a stock watch where we have more information. And all the stuff is happening. We'll hopefully have an update for you tomorrow as well. Mari, what are you up to?
You can just follow me on Twitter at Mari Talks Too Much. That's where you know where I'm at. Of course, Wrestling Wrap Up with Matt Scott, and Crime Scene Podcast with Sarah Carradine. So you can go to robhasawebsite.com/wrestling feed to hear me and Matt Scott talk about the highlights of the week in wrestling. And then you can go to robhasawebsite.com/crime feed to hear me and Sarah Carradine do true crime reviews. So go check that out. And then follow me on Twitter.
All right. And of course, you can find It's Melissa, you can find Melissa at It's Melissa with 3 A's, and just a little bit of that. All right. Thank you all again so much for joining us here tonight, and we will see all of you next time.